is Paul Tilstone from Festive Road, and today I'm in conversation with Richard Eades from BP. Welcome, Richard.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
Very well, thank you. You doing all right?
Yeah, great, thanks.
Good. So we've asked you to come on today to talk to us about how you're preparing for the return to travel. We've asked you to choose something or a couple of things from our managed travel model. What is it that you've chosen?
Yeah, so I've chosen safety and sustainability. And I've also looked at distribution and service because I think there's a strong synergy that we can take you through the journey on.
Okay, so we'll come back to those in a second. Let's just assess where are you in that preparation for return to travel as BP and in your role as responsible for travel and meetings?
Yeah, interesting question because we've obviously had many influencers that have had to review and really make sure that we're focused on not just the COVID-19 situation. So $30 oil prices has really had an impact on our cost alignment. But also we've had a new CEO start in February. So the journey has been really quite interesting that he hit the floor running with a new executive board, quite modern, focused outlook, really focused on our sustainability message that we're going to go carbon neutral by 2050, if not earlier. We've obviously, as a travel team, been on that sustainability journey for a while, but also for us, it's that agile, modern technology focus that we started back in 2019. And obviously our change of TMC, which we'll come on to. And then we restructured as a global procurement division under our global business services. Went into restructure and came out of that at roughly around the same time. So 1st of March, I started the new role where I'm now accountable for all travel meetings and event management from a category management point of view, and then lined with my colleague Andy Roberts, who's managing the service delivery team across the world.
So it's sort of two bits there, isn't there? There's the as a business, you're used to responding to incidents all the time. So that your mindset has been sort of standard incident response protocol, and you're still in that sort of stage. And then you're saying there is as sort of fundamental to how you're operating. You've got a culture that's now becoming, it's always been safety focused, now it's becoming heightened in sustainability focused. Is that right?
Yeah, no, it's a real massive point for us as BP, our culture. It's in our DNA that we don't compromise on safety. It's one of our 5 values as a business, but it's moved on. I mean, as a travel team, we regularly conduct tabletops exercises with our group security, but also, our TMC and key suppliers in travel and meetings, looking at various scenarios. I think COVID-19 has obviously brought a scenario that potentially I don't think any corporate would have been prepared for on a global pandemic situation. We've had regional scenarios which we've managed and has opened up a lot of lessons learned and preparation. For us, the return to travel is still quite a way away. We're internally preparing, obviously, alignment with group HR, group health and legal teams in each region. But, we're still, I wouldn't say deep in our incident support, but we've been in incident support since beginning of March. And I can give you some various examples where we've utilized some of the technology as well as our experience to quickly stand up solutions that have now been adopted across the world.
Okay, it's in your DNA, basically, isn't it? Now, you manage travel and meetings. Let's talk about each of those separate little bit and kind of talk about some of the tangible activity that you're involved in that sort of preparing to return, or the beginning of the preparing to return. What sorts of things are you doing in the meeting space?
So the meeting space, I think it's an interesting one because I think from the outside, our stakeholders, our leadership are obviously looking at us and saying, well, what are these guys doing at the moment? We're not booking meetings. Yeah. We shouldn't be booking meetings. we're employing a service delivery team and a program management team that you're thinking, well, what are they doing? Now, what we've been able to do is utilize the fact that we use Cvent globally. So we've got data on top of our venue sourcing and our event management. We've been able to align with our supply base to see what is in the pipeline, but what was actually also going through the motions that could have taken place, and we've mitigated. So the mitigation is obviously removing the risk of cancelling the meeting, but the fact that we utilize our terms and conditions with our partners is utilizing credit for future in the cancellation where cancellations are due, obviously negotiating on positions, etc. But it has highlighted quite a, I would say, especially in the meetings environment, something that we've got to prepare for. We've got to work with our partners. We've got to protect them, that we want our partners to be there and ready for our future bookings. But there is a case of the financial impact. So where I mean that is that a lot of the meetings on large events are built around deposit schedules. And then obviously that brings up the question, if we've got an event that we're involved in for 6 months, 12 months time, and we're being asked to pay deposit, we really want to know that there's some, sustainable suppliers out there that do we need to change the way we're working? Do we need to operate on escrow accounts or etc.? I was reading an article over the weekend from the Wall Street Journal, and the statement was, and I look at this with the airlines as well, the proverbial tide going out is exposing who's swimming naked.
Right,
now,
okay.
Obviously we've seen already some suppliers that unfortunately have already disappeared. We've got those that are financially restructuring. But as you can imagine, we're under pressure from a $30 oil barrel operation, and cash flow is important for everybody.
Yeah.
But so's the kind of position of saying we need to protect our brand and reputation, and that includes our money, and that includes our expectations from our shareholders that we act appropriately.
We're also talking beforehand about sole use of venue. You were saying that this is a big consideration that you need to think about. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Paul, we've been looking at the situation that our experience in managing the incident management has shown that we can have the best laid plans in place. We can have the right people servicing those plans in hotels, in ground transport, safe passage areas. But the difficulty is we can't predict human behavior. And whilst we can try and control BP staff, our rotation, our crews, our offshore workers that we're placing through the safe passage, what we couldn't do to start with was control the behavior of other guests in those hotels. Certain basics like the 2 meter distancing, we had hotels calling us and saying people weren't standing 2 meters apart at registration desks or collecting food. So it's opened our eyes to say, okay, so in future, with our stakeholders, it might cost a little bit more. But if we're to protect our guests as well as our staff and the hotel staff in these situations, then should we be looking at an exclusive use property, something that's aligned to the size? So, for example, at the moment, we might have a booking for 100 people, but do we need space for 200 to allow for that space? So those are kind of things that we're actually trying to identify before we even go to market, so that we're looking. But I think that I've had some discussions with hotels already, and there's quite a few that are identifying that they're ideal for exclusive use because they've got that route of passage for the delegates to move through. They can handle the food and beverage appropriately. Obviously, there's always the discussions that are happening at the moment around food and beverage. Is the buffet dead? Lots of conversations going on. So.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the transient travel piece. I mean, I read your CEO's inaugural speech, and actually in the first, I think, sort of 5 minutes, I counted he'd used the words change or the word changed 9 times. So clearly very focused on changing some of the culture of BP. And when you've chosen the managed travel model piece for the transient piece, you've chosen distribution and service platform.
Yeah.
So are the two linked, change and service platform?
Yeah, I don't think it was a fortunate position or just by chance that last year we went out to market. We'd been with a TMC for 20 years, and we could see internally that we'd all gone through agile training. We'd looked at different ways to approach situations that we could really focus our stakeholder engagement into understanding what actually is the diverse stakeholder community that we've got around the world. How are they going to be conducting their business in future? Where are they going to be conducting? And what type of environment are we going to be looking at? So to take that change, we need to look at what platforms were we using to enable the traveller and stakeholder to make their own empowered decisions, but based on then the journey that we're going through. So you would have heard Bernard Looney calling about reimagining energy. That's our first stop. The next is reinventing BP. And it's, we're actually looking at it as an exciting period to move to that level and say we for ourselves are ahead of the curve by the fact that we very focused with communications and engagement with stakeholders delivered an implementation of by over 40 countries between October and December in the first tranche over into Agencia that provided us that rich content platform to start changing the ways that we don't need to be so focused on a consolidated platform, but actually open up that rich, unbundled, restricted, unrestricted, as long as you're explaining what it is to the traveller. They can then obviously make that choice of saying, I want the cheaper rate on this occasion, and I'm not going to cancel, but if I do cancel, I understand. So I haven't got phone calls every day saying, oh, I'm not booking under that platform today because I can see a cheaper rate on another platform. Those kind of things have disappeared. So we were already on that journey before the COVID hit, that we were able to come in with a far richer platform, starting to look at how NDC is going to look. So, are we still looking at a lowest logical fare, or actually the lowest logical value, so that in advance of arriving at the airport, each individual has got exactly what they wanted within their price brackets?
So you're still, even though you're preparing for the return, you're actually looking at some bigger items here, some longer term perspectives. I think you talked about dynamic pricing in hotels management as well. So you're pressing ahead with these pieces. You're using this time as an opportunity with the tech that you've got.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in new countries, in India for us previously, we'd gone on the journey of introducing a credit card when we moved to City Card. That was the first point. And then we've suddenly brought Agencia into play, and they've got an online booking tool. And suddenly I've got 2 or 3 Indian cities that are appearing in my top 20 volume cities. So whilst it might not be incremental business for my supply base, it's actually new visionary data that we've starting to capture. And as you know, prior to our RFP, one of the projects I was working on last year was the data lake project. What I was trying to do was bring that book data in with the approved and transactional data, and then with the final Concur T&E expense data. That was giving me so much more content to analyze, rather than saying, well, I'm only working on book data, I don't know what happened later on. So that's given me that visionary. Going back to your question around dynamic pricing, is do I kind of continue to consolidate the number of negotiated hotels in the program moving into 2021-22 period, and look at a more dynamic area, because I can create city caps that will fit everybody. When you've got so many entities within one big organization, you can't create budget controls because each entity was creating their own. But that data will give you analytics to be able to be predictable, to say that cap will capture everybody, and there's no need for anybody to go and spend anymore. So it's helping the budget control, but it's keeping everybody safe still, because we're still feeding our response information center in our group security all that transactional data.
Okay.
So the data is really driving that distribution and vice versa.
Talking about data, and you mentioned rich content, how much of the rich content about safety procedures and changes to products and services as a result of COVID-19 are you seeing coming through in the booking tool to the point of sale to the traveller?
Yeah, I mean, it's early days at the moment. I think, whether it's travel or meetings, I've read some reports and I've been on some discussions with peer groups and the industry. And I think that the bit that's missing for me at the moment is the regulations and the enforcement of this is the way this sector of the industry is going to be working in this location. And we're going to see different airlines have different rules because of the routes they're taking. Hotels under the same chains globally could be operating slightly different because of the local regulations. So I don't think it's for us as a corporate to start forcing our positions on safety to hotels at the moment when we don't know what the hotels are being told they've got to do. I think it needs to come back. And this brings to kind of the reaction to COVID. Has got to be an industry collaboration. What I don't want to see is a sales and marketing pitch from each hotel and airline telling me how clean they're going to be, because to a traveller, that's an expectation.
Yes.
So do we suddenly have a booking tool that says this is a COVID clean hotel? Well, it's more of a case of why would you put a non-COVID hotel on your distribution? So, it is about collaboration, working together, realizing that the cost base for a supplier is likely to increase. But for us, our demand is at the moment is obviously virtually nothing apart from our incident and offshore worker solutions, and then moving into a sustainable position where, we are a customer to an airline, but we're also a supplier to an airline. So it's a double whammy in a situation where we're not putting seats on aeroplanes and aeroplanes aren't buying our fuel. So that gradual return to the normality, kind of what is the normality. But I think for us, we're seeing it as a massive opportunity to take stock and reinvent, our company through the journey that Bernard's highlighted for us. The new executive board are driving us in that direction, and I think we've got a great opportunity to actually reinvent our travel program. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Richard, thank you very much for sharing the detail of where you're at within BP. I mean, the idea of this series is to provide some tangible examples to help everybody learn from everybody else. So I really appreciate you coming on to this call today.
No, thanks, Paul. It's always great to talk to you. Thanks.
Okay, great. So to everybody watching, just remember you can download the Permissible Travel Framework from festive-road.com. We'll also be doing more interviews with other buyers over the forthcoming weeks. And I just want to thank you for watching our In Conversation with series. Thank you.